Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take another look at the night sky for the month of June this year, 2026. We're going to concentrate on the constellations, the stars, but we are going to point out the planets as well here at the beginning. So we can see Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. There is a tree in the way. They are all very close to the horizon. And I'm sure you can imagine if this tree is getting in the way, buildings will get in the way even more. If we go very quickly a little bit closer to the equator, we'll jump down towards here. This is going to change the angle at which we see the ecliptic, and that means it will change the angle at which we see the planets in the sky. So we can certainly see Jupiter and Venus more easily there, but Mercury is still so low in the sky that by the time it becomes visible to the naked eye, it's going to likely be blocked out by trees and buildings. We do have more planets coming up in the morning, and we will take a look at them once we get there. But before we do, we're going to take a look at those stars. So we're looking here at the night of the 14th of June, the night of the new moon, and it looks like we're already seeing quite a lot of stars. I want to make sure that I'm not giving a false view of the sky, overly misleading view of the sky. This is a little bit better, just a little bit more light pollution, which is unfortunate. I wish I could remove light pollution to give a more realistic view of the sky, but that wouldn't be realistic. Most of us live in cities with at least some amount of light pollution. But we can see here, just coming up to 11 o'clock, just as the sky is finally getting dark for summertime, some of the most famous objects are visible to us. The summer triangle is already nice and clear, fully above the horizon, because we're right into the middle of summer. One of the brightest stars we're seeing down in the south here is Arcturus. Sirius isn't up at the moment, the actual brightest star besides the sun, and of course those planets are going to be pretty blocked out. As we look around the sky, we can see a couple of bright stars in the summer triangle and Arcturus down here towards the south. This is early enough in the evening that not too many other stars have come out. Once we push ahead closer to darkness, here we are at 11:30. We're still not in total darkness. We won't get to total darkness this late in June, this high on the northern hemisphere, but this is pretty close. It's at least dark enough to see more of the shape of Bootes or Bootes, always a tricky one for me to pronounce. We can see a couple of the stars in Spica. We can see roughly the shape of Leo. We can see the plough or the Big Dipper nice and high in the sky. The handle of the plough will arc to Arcturus, and then you spike on to Spica. Despite being a bright and blue star, Spica can sometimes be a little bit tricky to find. Some people prefer Spica, Spica, whichever you'd prefer. The summer triangle is definitely nice and clear, and we can see bits of Cygnus and a little bit of Albireo. Albireo is a binary star, and it's a good target even with smaller telescopes. If we take a closer look, one star becomes two. Albireo is a binary star, and it's right in the middle of the summer triangle. Just about visible with the naked eye from this city view with the sunlight still in the sky. We can see the curved shape here of Serpens. This part I believe is Serpens caput, the head of the snake. The other end goes over the other way towards Aquila here, towards Altair, but not all the way. Ophiuchus would be rising up in the middle, these few stars here. Scorpius is nice and clear as the sun is going down, that nice red Antares. However, it is very low in the sky. There's no trees down here in the south in this view like there is over in the west, but I'm sure you can tell if there was more blockages like buildings or trees around you, that would block Scorpius from view, leaving you with the higher in the sky constellations like Bootes, like Ophiuchus. We'll continue moving towards morning time. The sky will get a little bit darker, and this is just about as dark as it's going to get. We'll move a little bit further forward, coming up to our local midnight, which is a little bit after 1 o'clock in the morning. That gives us a much fuller view of the plough or the Big Dipper. It also brings Cassiopeia higher into the sky, so Cassiopeia will get easier to see as the night gets later. We can see this almost line of stars coming along here under Cassiopeia. but that's really several constellations. That's really Pegasus moving into Andromeda. So it's not one big constellation, even though looking at the sky broadly like this, it can almost seem like one. Those constellations are usually connected or considered to be related to some degree. Looking towards the north here, we're still getting that glow over the northern horizon, but the sky is fairly dark towards the south, as dark as it's going to get from a light polluted city at least. And not for long. Here we are coming up to half three in the morning, and the sky is already fairly bright. The summer triangle is really coming up to the middle of the sky. We've got the square of Pegasus above Saturn leading into Andromeda and then finishing off in Perseus. But Perseus is very hard to see thanks to the glow of the sun coming up as well. We should barely get a glimpse of Mars. There we go. So there's Mars and Saturn. Neptune is roughly out in that direction. And we already saw Jupiter, Venus and Mercury. So that's most of the planets. Uranus is much closer to being behind the sun. Uranus's superior conjunction with the sun is around this time. So Uranus is going to be more difficult to see, of course. But we do have most of the planets. Mars is tricky here, but as I demonstrated for the planets in the evening, it's going to be easier if you're closer to the equator. And you don't have to be very much closer to the equator, just a little bit closer to the equator. Here in Ireland, we're pretty far from the equator, but you can see here, there's Mars, much brighter, much easier to see. Still not particularly high in the sky, but definitely a much more feasible target if you are just that little bit closer to the equator, which of course we're not. So we will come back to here, sun already risen enough to block out all of the stars and the planets. So there's Saturn, one of the last things to go. We'll take a quick look around the sky. Yeah, we've still got Vega, another very, very bright star. Vega, not as bright as Sirius, not the brightest star in our sky, but Sirius just isn't up at this time of the year. So of course that's the sky as it is in the city. The sky is brief. We're not getting to see the sky for very long because we are in the summertime portion of the year, and higher on the northern hemisphere specifically, we're going to have very short nights. But we can make those nights darker by traveling out to the countryside, and here we are just past midnight. We've still got a little sunlight in the sky, but we'll have that all night long. We've got a much better view of the sky here. We can see more of Scorpius in detail, and even the triangular part of Libra here, the top part of the scales. More of the shape of Virgo is visible, and Leo, even though Leo is dipping down towards the sunset, getting towards that glow in the sky. We can see all of the Plough very clearly, and we can even join it up to the other stars in Ursa Major, forming the shape of the bear. From Arcturus, we can see the full kite shape of Bootes. It's much easier to see. And we can clearly see the curve of Corona Borealis. One of the stars in Corona Borealis was visible, of course, from even city skies, but here we're seeing the full curve of the crown, and it's a lot easier to see that little trapezoidal shape of Hercules as well. That is the body of Hercules. We still have the summer triangle, nice and big, stretching across the sky, and we can better see the tail end of the snake there arcing up above Sagittarius. We're catching a little bit of Sagittarius here, but of course, in a real city sky, you don't just have to worry about light pollution, you have to worry about all of the buildings and structures around you. And that's what's going to block out Sagittarius and Scorpius. Even if you live in a city that doesn't produce a lot of light pollution, the actual physical structure of the city can still block things out. We can clearly see Delphinus, the little dolphin shape. It's not a dolphin, it's more of a diamond shape, but it is the constellation of the dolphin. That's pretty clear just next to the summer triangle. We've also got a better view of Cassiopeia, and we can see a little bit more of that shape of Perseus, even though we're not as close to sunrise. Even though Perseus isn't as high, the atmosphere is still extincting the same amount of Perseus, but there's not as much light pollution. So here we are, even with the glow of the sun, minus the light pollution, we can still see that fin of Perseus transitioning into Andromeda and then into Pegasus with the square. We'll see how well Mars is visible. Definitely visible, better than it would be from the city, but of course it's still not going to get that high in the sky before it disappears. So that brings us through the night sky in the city and in a more rural sky, not a perfect dark sky, nothing unachievable, just about dark enough to see the glow of the Milky Way, but still not a totally perfect sky. That's how the sky is going to look while we're still a little bit ahead of the solstice. So during the solstice, parts of the sky toward the north will be brighter at midnight, but that should still give you a fairly clear idea of what is going to be where and what you can see over the coming weeks as we move through the middle of the summer, the shortest night of the year. So I hope that you get to see these constellations, these stars. I hope you get to see the sky with less light pollution than normal wherever you are. If you can get to a darker sky, I hope you get the chance. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it. If you like this kind of content, then please subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you'd like to read this information, you can do so on my website, queevinscontent.ie. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.